300-pound dudes tackling you on a frozen field, the last thing you want to do is stay out there. Believe me, the Rams players were thinking about the jacuzzi at their team hotel, that they find it laughable, but more laughable if they totally disregard the trade whatsoever. This guy has transformed the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. And you could argue the entire defense is going to be absolutely ferocious next year. But if your number one priority is to win a Super Bowl, then J.J. Watt is making a grave mistake. To ride this Chad Henne experiment for an entire game, I might need a whole bottle of Hennessy just to get through that. Guy who's won 8 division titles, who's made 5 AFC championship appearances, who's reached the Super Bowl 3 times and has won 2 Super Bowls for this organization. Aaron Rodgers has only won 1 Super Bowl with Green Bay. Drew Brees has only won 1 Super Bowl with New Orleans. There's only 13 quarterbacks in NFL history that have won multiple Super Bowls, and Big Ben is one of those individuals. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm Jonah Malkin with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a jam-packed show for you today. A lot transpiring in the NBA overnight. I'm going to break down the latest NBA trade buzz, more news on Deshaun Watson and his lawsuits. And even Aaron Rodgers needs more assurances from Green Bay to commit to him. What does that say about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers? And are the New York Giants the best team in the NFC East? They're certainly making a play at it in this offseason. But first, we start with the latest NBA trade buzz. A lot has unfolded. So let's start with the Los Angeles Lakers. Apparently, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Talen Horton-Tucker are in trade discussions. Yes, Lakers fans, I'm sorry to say they are in trade discussions right now. So here's the reality. KCP and Talen Horton-Tucker are averaging 8 points a game this year. And when you factor in LeBron James, his injury being out for an extended period of time, at least a month, exacerbated by the absence of Anthony Davis, they can no longer afford to rely on ancillary pieces to try and carry them through this regular season and just support LeBron and AD. They're not getting that type of production. And so what that means is now you're seeing their standing have a precipitous fall in the NBA rankings and the standings in the Western Conference. Right now, they are plummeting. They are 3rd in the Western Conference as of last week. Now they're 4th. They're only 2 games ahead of the Dallas Mavericks for 8th. So this is a concerning situation for the Lakers, and they understand that those are really their 2 best trade chips along with Kyle Kuzma right now. I'd probably say Talen Horton-Tucker is the most valuable asset that they have right now. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he's been inconsistent this year. Of course, we know what he was able to do in the postseason last year, but this year, yes, he's shooting 40% from the 3-point line, but it hasn't come as efficiently or as creatively as they would have hoped. So that's news in Lakerland. Those 2 guys are on the trading block right now. Then shifting to the Eastern Conference, the Indiana Pacers are listening to trade potential offers for Malcolm Brogdon. Yes, it's interesting because the Indiana Pacers, I never expected them to make the postseason. In fairness, I didn't have them in my top 8. What's happened was the Charlotte Hornets and the New York Knicks have all of a sudden ascended out of nowhere, and they've overachieved. Meanwhile, the teams that I thought they were going to make the playoffs, in the Washington Wizards and the Toronto Raptors, have regressed for whatever reason, inexplicably. And so it's the combination of the Hornets and the Knicks showing tremendous promise and overachieving, and the Indiana Pacers just not playing up to their level of capability. You look at this roster just a couple months ago. Domantas Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon, a healthy TJ Warren, and a healthy Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo is gone. TJ Warren underwent surgery to rehab a stress fracture in his foot. So this Indiana Pacers team was scrambling to find a competitive roster. That's why they made the trade for Karis LeVert. But right now, what they're showing you is Domantas Sabonis is the only bona fide center core piece of this Indiana Pacers future. I would argue that Karis LeVert is also in there as well. But Malcolm Brogdon, I love Malcolm Brogdon. He's giving you 21 points per game, not to mention on top of that, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, a fantastic season. I thought he was an all-star snub, but the reality is clearly he's showing that he's not good enough. He's not good enough for the Indiana Pacers to want to build their future around him and Domantas Sabonis. So he's not indispensable anymore. And I'm going to break down some potential hypothetical trades involving him just coming up around the corner. So Indiana Pacers, they are on the clock, interested in some other pieces, listening for offers for Malcolm Brogdon. Now, in the Chicago Bulls, Lauri Markkanen. I don't really know who Lauri Markkanen is. I'm sorry. I was all in on him 2 years ago. He was a Rookie of the Year finalist. And in his second season, he averaged 19 points a game. This guy was starting to really turn that corner and develop his game. This is like the prototypical stretch four who could shoot the three, who can shoot the post, who can shoot the mid-range, can post you up. He's got ball handling skills. He's a really versatile player, but he's kind of plateaued. And that's been the disappointing aspect of his game. He hasn't taken those steps forward, leaps and bounds like a Zach LaVine, who's averaging 28 points per game this year. Lauri Markkanen is averaging 16 points and 7 rebounds, which is still great numbers for a starter in the NBA. But given where his what his trajectory was coming out of Arizona and the start that he had in the NBA, the Chicago Bulls are saying to themselves, well, they're kind of in this limbo phase of what do we do with this talent? And so I understand that they're looking and feeling takers for him. And I think that a new environment would be better for him. I do think that he'll be able to flourish in a different environment in Chicago, because when you think about the Chicago Bulls, the first two guys you think about are Zach LaVine and Kobe White. And I would argue that after those two guys, it's Wendell Carter Jr. It's not even Lauri Markkanen, who's kind of been hampered by lingering injuries, so he's a little bit brittle. So I'm not entirely sure who he is. And clearly the Chicago Bulls feel the exact same way because they haven't committed to him long-term. A lot of their long-term negotiations have been stymied, both sides unhappy with where the negotiations have gone. Now, in the Orlando Magic, another example, Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon's been frustrated because of the losses that have mounted up in 7 years with the Orlando Magic. 7 years, 203, 322 record with the Orlando Magic. That's over the course of 7 years. Now, it's not all his fault. It's not all of his fault, but here's the reality. Aaron Gordon, his contract reflects who he is. In fact, I would almost say that his contract is a little bit inflated for the premium that he gives you. Aaron Gordon is a good player who's making really good money in the NBA. 4 years, $80 million, an annual salary of $20 million a year. But he's a good player. He's a really good player, averaging 15.7 rebounds this year. He's not a cornerstone piece. And again, the Orlando Magic are sitting back and looking at the standings and saying, well, we're the second worst team in the Eastern Conference. We've only got one championship piece in Nikola Vucevic. I like Aaron Gordon, and I appreciate his transparency and his candidness and his openness about wanting to be traded. I'm not sure how many suitors are going to be out there on the market when he still has a contract for a year and a half that's going to have to pay him in excess of $30 million over the course of 2 years. I don't know who's willing to trade for him mid-season, but the Orlando Magic have certainly granted him the opportunity to be traded as long as they are takers. And then we have Kyle Lowry and Norman Powell in Canada, although they've kind of shifted from Canada. They're playing all their basketball in Tampa, Florida this year. And this is so interesting because you can see how quickly things change. These two pieces were two integral pieces of their 2019 championship team. Now, they weren't as integral as Kawhi Leonard or Pascal Siakam or Fred VanVleet. I understand that. But Kyle Lowry is probably the most beloved Toronto Raptor in their franchise's history. He'll probably have a statue outside of Scotiabank Arena. Norman Powell's having a career year, 20 points per game, shooting 43% from the three-point line. His trade value has never been higher. He's likely going to decline his $11 million player option at the end of the season because he can command more money. And I think the Raptors know that, which is why they're starting to try and get ahead of this situation and trade both of these guys early. Kyle Lowry is in the final year of his contract at age 34, going to be 35. I'm not sure what type of money he's looking for or where he wants to finish his career, but I think the Toronto Raptors recognize that he's not a part of their future moving forward. And while they certainly want to pay their respects to him down the line, they're more vested in their short-term interests, and he's not a part of their short-term goal. So that's news in Toronto. And then finally, no surprise here, Houston Rockets are preparing to move on from Victor Oladipo. This is a team that was celebrated for just snapping a 20-game losing streak. Yes, you heard that correctly. They snapped a 20-game losing streak by beating the Toronto Raptors a couple days ago, and it was a cause for celebration. I feel really badly for Steven Silas that he had to inherit a team that was dealing with such a tumultuous situation that traded away every single living, viable piece to their franchise. They traded away James Harden. PJ Tucker is gone. Eric Gordon will likely be gone. He's out another 6 weeks. So it was only a matter of time before Victor Oladipo was also shipped out of there. And it's not surprising. And while Victor Oladipo is having a good season, and he is 21 points per game, he's not a part of the Rockets' future. And they know that. So this is what now I wanted to transition to, which is which 3 NBA trades would I like to see happen? These are all hypothetical. I don't know if this is going to happen at all, but these are trades that I would love and clamor at the opportunity to see. And I'm pretty sure that these NBA teams would be thrilled to make these moves as well. At number 1, Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards to the Philadelphia 76ers. This would be a trade straight out of heaven, straight up Bradley Beal for Ben Simmons. This works for both sides. Why does this work for Philadelphia? Well, it fortifies an actual legitimate big 3. Now you've got an elite scorer to open up the floor for Joel Embiid. I know that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid technically have worked. Technically, they've worked together. I understand that. But they're the yin to the yang that doesn't work as well. They both just clog up the lane. Now you've got shooters who can spread the floor, but they're not just going to sit there and post up in the corner like a Seth Curry. No, Bradley Beal can go get you 30 points and support Joel Embiid. And if Bradley Beal is your number 2 player, I do think you can legitimately compete in the Eastern Conference. They have to match the firepower that is on the Brooklyn Nets. Ben Simmons, while he's great defensively, give me great offense over great defense every day of the week, including Sundays. And Bradley Beal can provide that juice, can provide that productivity. Why would the Washington Wizards want to conduct this trade? They know Bradley Beal's not in there for the long haul. Bradley Beal is a good sport. He's saying all the right things. He's the ultimate consummate professional. And the Wizards have a great one in Bradley Beal. But let's be honest. They know good and well that Bradley Beal does not want to remain there the rest of his career, and they know they can't build around him the rest of his career. They tried doing that. They tried trading for Russell Westbrook, and they're a bottom 3 team in the Eastern Conference. Ben Simmons can expedite that rebuild and provide a new, fresh, exciting face in the district's capital immediately. I think this works for both sides, and I'd be extremely excited to see the Philadelphia 76ers with a Bradley Beal. I think that would absolutely be fantastic. At number 2, I told you that the Indiana Pacers are listening for trade offers regarding Malcolm Brogdon. This is a hypothetical I would love to see. Malcolm Brogdon being traded to the Miami Heat in exchange for Tyler Hero, Goran Dragic, and perhaps Kendrick Nunn or some picks. I love Malcolm Brogdon. I've talked about this before, but I especially love him when he's coming in as the 3rd best guy on your team who's actually ascending. Think about where the Miami Heat are right now. They only have one creator, one playmaker in Jimmy Butler, who's a bona fide dual threat. Now you bring in a guy in Malcolm Brogdon who can D up. He fits the culture perfectly in Miami. He's unselfish. He shoots the ball extremely efficiently, 40% from the three-point line, 46% from the floor, 88% from the free throw line. This is an unselfish player who distributes the basketball, defends at a high level, can spread the floor, and he can go create his own shot. He's still averaging 21 points per game this year for Indiana. Imagine the type of damage he could do with the Miami Heat, with Eric Spoelstra, Mickey Arison, this entire Pat Riley, this entire team. I think he'd be a fantastic fit. And the reality is, Tyler Hero, while I see tremendous upside with him, he's underachieved this year. He really has. He's not shooting the three ball nearly as effectively as they want him to. He's a little bit undersized, not a great defender, but he's got tremendous potential, which is why the Miami Heat have been so reticent and reluctant to trade him unless it's for a legitimate piece, because he's still young. Tyler Hero's 20 years old. This is just his second year in the NBA, and he's following a campaign in which he really asserted himself in the NBA playoffs and was starting to really turn into form, round into form, play really well. So the Pacers, you're getting a potential breakout star in Tyler Hero who has shown explosiveness on the offensive side. This is a guy who's more than capable of averaging 15 to 20 points a game in the right situation if he's given the right number of shots and the right number of opportunities. And I see him gaining those opportunities with the Indiana Pacers. You pair him with Domantas Sabonis again. I like this trade for both sides. That's number two. Then at number three, DeMar DeRozan to the Denver Nuggets in exchange for Michael Porter Jr. and perhaps another compensatory pick or a player. The problem with the Denver Nuggets right now, they've never been able to fill the void of Jeremy Grant, of his absence from last year. And they need a bona fide, consistent scorer who can come in and shoulder some of the burden from Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And they haven't gotten that type of production yet from Michael Porter Jr. this year, or from Will Barton, or from whoever else they have on this roster. And I like their roster. PJ Dozier is a nice young player out of South Carolina. I like him, but he's not DeMar DeRozan. And the great thing about DeMar DeRozan is he could come in and only have to be your third best player. The reason I didn't like him on the Lakers in the offseason was because his style doesn't fit that of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, he might be looked upon as that veteran with experience that can come in and help take this team over the top, match fire with fire. And again, they don't have a third consistent scorer that can come in and produce. And he's still averaging 20 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 7.4 assists. DeMar DeRozan leads the Spurs this year. So he's unselfish. He distributes the basketball. And I think that he would be a great fit with the Denver Nuggets and the San Antonio Spurs, that they know DeMar DeRozan, similarly to a bunch of other guys, is not their future. They have to keep him because he's the only valuable player really they have on their team. He's their best guy. So I understand why they're not trading him just yet. But the Spurs could easily start to rebuild around Michael Porter Jr. I think that in a more regimented system under Greg Popovich, with some more guidance and coaching, he can start to develop a lot quicker than perhaps he could under Mike Malone. That's no knock on Mike Malone. I like him as a head coach. Maybe he's not quite as good at developing some of these younger players like potentially a Greg Popovich is. So those are the three hypothetical trades. And Michael Porter Jr. still averaging 16.7 rebounds. He's been showing a lot of flashes this year. Those are my hypothetical trade scenarios approaching the trade deadline. Now, here are the three trades that I could realistically see happening by the Thursday trade deadline. So the first one is Kyle Lowry to the Philadelphia 76ers. This is truly a match made in heaven. This was what was meant to happen all along. The Philadelphia 76ers, they need a true point guard. They absolutely need a floor general who can set the tone defensively for them. I know that Doc Rivers is infatuated with Kyle Lowry. He's an experienced veteran who has won an NBA championship. He knows what it takes to get there. He shoots the three ball well. He defends at a high level. He distributes the basketball, and he opens up the floor for some of these other players like Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris to go to work. He played his college ball at Villanova. He's from Philadelphia. So this would be the ultimate reunion at the perfect time of the year and of his career, chasing another NBA championship, but this time with his hometown city. The 76ers are craving an NBA championship, and now they finally have the team that appears poised to make that push, the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. So I would love to see Kyle Lowry on the Philadelphia 76ers. We know that there have been trade discussions involving Kyle Lowry so far, especially specifically with the Philadelphia 76ers. So I would anticipate that this would happen. He provides championship mettle, tenacity that the entire team would rally around. So second trade that I see happening is Victor Oladipo to the New York Knicks. I talked about this in the offseason. Why does this make the most sense? This makes the most sense because the Rockets have acknowledged that they are in the process of shipping away Victor Oladipo. Well, who would take a chance on trading for a guy in Victor Oladipo unless they know without a shadow of a doubt that he is going to stay with them in the offseason? The only two teams that are of the mindset that they can retain Victor Oladipo this offseason if they were to trade prematurely for him midseason are the New York Knicks and the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat have been reluctant to trade away some of those pieces, knowing that Victor Oladipo in the offseason will likely sign there. Yes, he's expressed a lot of interest in New York, but I believe, along with other media experts, that the Miami Heat are the likely favorites to land Victor Oladipo if it gets to the offseason. So the New York Knicks are the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. They understand where his number one desire is, but that he'd be happy to play in New York. And they need to pair a proven commodity, a proven all-star with Julius Randle right now, even if that means parting ways with RJ Barrett or Emmanuel Quickley. I'm not sure who they would necessarily have to trade away, but I think that it's entirely plausible that the New York Knicks say, hey, you know what? We don't want to wait till the offseason. We're going to go ahead and make this trade now. And I could easily see them doing that in the next couple of hours. So that is number two. And then not to mention, the Houston Rockets are just accumulating draft picks and accruing draft capital. That's all they've been doing. They're stockpiling right now, just waiting for the right time to utilize all these picks at their disposal and to fire off this salvo. So we're just still waiting, but I anticipate that could be a second trade that could happen. The third and final trade is another member of the Toronto Raptors in Norman Powell, who I talked about in the hypothetical trades. I really like Norman Powell. I know I have a little bit of a bias because he's a UCLA guy, but he's averaging 20 points per game on 43% shooting from the three-point line, a career high for Norman Powell. This is a guy who could immediately come in and provide a huge spark for the Denver Nuggets. So we're talking about trading Norman Powell to the Denver Nuggets. I talked about just a minute ago, they need a bona fide consistent scorer. The problem was DeMar DeRozan seemed a little bit hypothetical, a little unrealistic. Not to mention, the Nuggets need a third piece that won't overshadow Jokic or Murray, and ideally would enable them the ability to retain Michael Porter Jr. I think that Norman Powell is just low priority enough that he won't command Michael Porter Jr. in exchange for his services. And I think that if that's the case, and the Denver Nuggets can get their hands on another creative and consistent scorer who can produce double-digit points for you all throughout the regular season, and then you know what he can do in the postseason, that's exactly the type of fit that Mike Malone, Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray need. He is an unselfish basketball player. He defends hard. He's tough. He's a gritty player. And I think that he would fit perfectly with the Denver Nuggets. And I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if he's traded there before the trade deadline. Not to mention Masai Ujiri, the current president of basketball operations for the Toronto Raptors, was the former general manager of the Denver Nuggets. So he'd likely be willing to do business with them again and vice versa. So I see that being a potential trade. Not to mention, again, they have to match the production that was lost from Jeremy Grant a season ago. No one's been able to come in and do that. Michael Porter Jr., while he's shown flashes, has not been consistent enough. And that's been the biggest impediment to the Denver Nuggets so far this year. Again, Morning Joe right here, J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. Jonah Malkin, Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Make sure to subscribe and follow across all platforms. So, shifting to the NFL, and I was really reluctant to talk about this. This is a developing and disturbing story, and a story that, quite frankly, I have intentionally avoided and put off from discussing because I didn't want to. I didn't want to believe all the reports. I didn't want to believe all the rumors surrounding Deshaun Watson, the Houston Texans quarterback. 16 lawsuits have been filed against him alleging sexual assault and inappropriate misconduct. Here's the problem. Sexual assault has always been an intolerable offense, and especially in today's climate, there's no room for it, and it's essentially a cardinal sin. And I want to give Deshaun Watson the benefit of the doubt right now. And right now, at this current moment in time, I will give him the benefit of the doubt because I am of the mindset that you're innocent until proven guilty. That's the mantra in the U.S. You're innocent until proven guilty. But there is mounting evidence to suggest the contrary. And when there is smoke, there is fire. It's one thing if you have one person alleging that he acted inappropriately. Then it's a battle of he said versus she said. Then you get to 3 lawsuits. So now it's he said versus she, and she said. Now it's 16 lawsuits that have been brought forth. So now it's he said versus they all, plural, said. And Rusty Hardin, Deshaun's lawyer, came out a couple days yesterday and said that there is strong evidence to suggest that some of the lawsuits are flawed and a bit erroneous, and therefore would invalidate the credibility and the validity of the other cases that were brought forth. But the problem is, regardless of the outcome here, the ramifications are going to be extraordinary and will leave an indelible stain on Deshaun Watson's image. Our perception of him has changed drastically. It's not only oscillated, but I don't know if it will ever recover from this. I truly don't. It's been sullied to such a point. Just to even be involved in these allegations is enough to warrant just total disgust from everyone. And for the sake of women, if he's found guilty, this would be a huge victory for women, and hopefully this can inspire more to come forward when situations like this transpire and not feel concerned or wanting to censor themselves due to what may come about. That's been the biggest issue. Now they finally feel more comfortable. So if he's found guilty, then this is a major win and a victory for women. And I'm happy that justice will be served and that hopefully will inspire more women to come forward and be honest about what's happened and to hold more men and more people in the society accountable. So that's one. But as a sports fan, And as a guy that loves Deshaun Watson, the talent, the player, strictly just the football player, I really hope this is false. I really hope to God that this is not true. I love Deshaun Watson, all the intangibles, the way he plays the position, the way he galvanizes his teammates. He's a marvel. He's an absolute joy to watch. And let's not get it twisted. There is still going to be a live market for Deshaun Watson. The market will not be bare for Deshaun Watson. Let's not get it twisted. Just because he's involved in these lawsuits, even if he's found guilty, teams will still be clamoring to trade for him. Why? He's 25. He's a generational talent. He just led the NFL for the most passing yards this season. He's fantastic, and there's never been a young top 5 quarterback in his prime available on the market at age 25 like this. It's unprecedented. But I mean, we saw Greg Hardy get signed by the Cowboys despite being charged for domestic violence. So if you're talented, you'll get another shot. But this is just a terrible look. And again, when there's smoke, there's fire. And it's one thing if it's one lawsuit. Now they're starting to compound on one another, all claiming the same thing. This is not a good look for Deshaun Watson. I'm hoping it's not true, but if it is, then we really have to shift the way that we perceive him, because just when you think you know someone, you really don't. You just don't. And I think it just calls into question all the kind of nefarious types of communication that he's been having with these women to set up these massages. That's still really unclear. This is a developing story, but I've been holding off from talking about this. I did not want to talk about this, but it's been pushed to the forefront that I have to talk about this. So that's my 2 cents on the situation. Okay. So shifting to a more positive note, New York Giants have been hustling and bustling this offseason. They have had an active offseason. They've signed Kenny Golladay, and they signed Kyle Rudolph, and now it was just announced yesterday that they signed Adoree Jackson from the Titans, 3 years, $39 million. So this Giants team is absolutely stacked. So it poses the question, are they the best team in the NFC East right now, given where they're at, right? And this is a team, mind you, that finished second in the NFC East last year. They were 6-10, one game behind the Washington football team. It came down to the final game of the regular season. Last year, they beat the Cowboys, and then it was all on the Washington football team against the Philadelphia Eagles to see who would represent the NFC East. And obviously, they came up short. The Washington football team won. So this team should absolutely be the best team in the NFC East. Let's take a look one at a time at each one of these teams, right? Excuse me. And mind you, Giants started last year, their first 8 games, 1-7, finished the year 5-3. So this was an ascending team, a promising team that was starting to turn the corner, right? It was showing nascent signs of a future. The Washington football team, I love what they've done this offseason. Their additions have been great. Curtis Samuel is a great pickup. William Jackson III is a nice cornerback. And I like this team. They already had the number 2 rated defense last year. Their offense has improved. Here's the only problem. They signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, who I like, but he's 38 in his 17th season. And he's really a glorified backup. I apologize. I really like Ryan Fitzpatrick, but this is like hiring Mrs. Doubtfire to be your housemaid. Yeah, Robin Williams played the part really well, but it's a facade. We know he can't keep that up forever. And I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I really do. But he has had a propensity and a proclivity to turn the ball over. That's what his track record says. Throughout his career, for his career, 223 touchdowns. Great stat over the course of his career. 169 interceptions. That's not good enough. So he's turnover prone. And what Washington needs is honestly someone like an Alex Smith, just a souped up version of Alex Smith, someone who does not turn the ball over, is a leader, can control the offense, can engineer drives, but doesn't give the ball away to the other team. And unfortunately, Ryan Fitzpatrick has had a history and a track record of doing that. Not to mention, as a starter, he's got a record of 59 wins, 86 losses, and one tie as a starter. As a starter, he doesn't have a winning record. And I'm sorry, I really like Ron Rivera. So the coaching's great. The offense has improved dramatically. You know, Terry McLaughlin and I apologize if I butchered his name. I believe that's his last name. Curtis Samuel. Then the defense is fantastic. I like the Washington football team. But I just don't think they should be better than the Giants. And let's look at the Cowboys. The Cowboys happy for Dak Prescott that he got his money, happy that they signed him to that major contract, but their defense is still atrocious, and they haven't addressed those issues that they have. The production of Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper and DeMarcus Lawrence have regressed. They are not living up to the expensive contracts that they signed a couple years ago. This is not the same Dallas Cowboys team, and they have not addressed their biggest flaw, which is their defense. So even if you throw in Dak Prescott in there, I still don't know if that necessarily elevates the Cowboys above the New York Football Giants. And then the Philadelphia Eagles are a dumpster fire. Let's just say what it is. They're a dumpster fire. They traded away Wentz, which was fine, but they also had to jettison different players. And they are reeling in dead cap money right now. They've had to trade away their best offense and defensive players. Alshon Jeffrey's not there anymore. Zach Ertz wants out of there. And I like Jalen Hurts, and I see tremendous growth with him. And I do believe in Jalen Hurts. But I need to see more. Am I entirely convinced he's the quarterback of the future? And even if he is, I don't know what the pieces around him are going to be. So there are a lot of question marks in Philadelphia. And the most important thing is that their ownership and their owner, Jeffrey Lurie, and their front office aren't in sync. They're sending mixed messages, sending mixed signals. And that's not conducive for a well-run organization. That just isn't. So the only question mark with the New York Giants, because they should be the clear runaway favorite to win this division, is Daniel Jones, their quarterback. He's the biggest impediment potentially for them. Is he the real guy? Because what the Giants have done is they have positioned him and positioned themselves to fully test out and identify and determine whether Daniel Jones is in fact their future quarterback. Defense is set. They just re-signed Leonard Williams. They were a top 12 defense last year, and the only reason why they weren't rated higher is because their offense was so bad that it put their defense out on the field longer than it needed to. So defense is great. Coaching is great. I like Joe Judge a lot. I think he's cultivated a culture that's conducive to winning. The players have bought in. I think they finally got that right. Jason Garrett is a great offensive coordinator, so they have a top 5, top 10 offensive coordinator to help Daniel Jones. They've got an elite wide receiving core. They just signed Kenny Golladay. They've got Darius Slayton. They've got Sterling Shepard. They've got Evan Ingram. Saquon Barkley is going to be back and healthy, so the running back position is set. Daniel Jones, that's the question. That's the only question, and he kind of regressed last year. He threw for less passing yards despite playing one extra game this year than last year. He still turns the ball over too many times. He threw 10 interceptions to just 11 touchdowns this year. He fumbled it again 8 times this year, 12 times last year. So he has an issue holding on to the football. That's the biggest issue with Daniel Jones. If he's truly the guy, then they will see that this year. Because if he doesn't win the NFC East, that's a clear indicator to the New York Giants that we need to move on. They took him with the 6th overall pick in the 2019 draft 3 years ago. This is the year to show whether or not you are truly the guy. Morning Joe right here, J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. So finally, some news out of Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers wants the Green Bay Packers to commit to him being the future quarterback beyond the 2021 NFL season. So let me first say this. Totally understand with Aaron Rodgers feeling this way, sharing this sentiment. He has a right to feel this way. He has a right to command publicly and to proclaim publicly and demand publicly that the Green Bay Packers acquiesce and announce their commitment to him and assure him their commitment to him. That all makes sense. We understand why Aaron Rodgers feels the way that he did. He felt backstabbed and betrayed, that his longtime organization basically bailed on him and wanted to ship him out the door and didn't believe in him anymore. They drafted Jordan Love, the 26th overall pick last year. They didn't make any trades for impact players now. But if you're Aaron Rodgers and you are a shrewd operator, this is an intelligent guy. He is very aware of how the Green Bay Packers operate, how NFL teams operate. He knows good and well that no matter what the Green Bay Packers say, and the Green Bay Packers are going to be calculated about their approach. They're going to be smart about this. They're absolutely going to say all the right things, say publicly, yes, Aaron Rodgers, we're going to assure you that you are our future quarterback. You're Aaron Rodgers. You know good and well that they are talking out of their behind. That is just dog excrement coming out of the Green Bay Packers. If they say, yes, we're going to assure you the starting quarterback job, what else are they going to say? You just came off an MVP season. You threw for 4,300 yards, 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Of course they're going to say that. Publicly and on the surface, yeah, they're going to say all the right things. Internally, there's no way in hell the Green Bay Packers can assure you that you are the quarterback moving forward. And to be honest, nor should they. They have to look out for themselves. The only example, the one precedent that has been set is Tom Brady. That as an older quarterback, you can still go out and win a Super Bowl. Even the great Tom Brady with the Patriots, Bill Belichick tried to ship his tail off, thought he was washed up, thought he couldn't produce anymore. And he's older than Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers knows that if he was to demand a trade or sign elsewhere, he could immediately turn another team into a contender. And the Packers are fully aware that if Aaron Rodgers was to leave, their relevancy would fall into oblivion. No one would talk about the Green Bay Packers anymore. So they know that. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, I understand the frustration, and I understand you want to express that frustration. But there is nothing that the Green Bay Packers are going to say that's going to allay your concerns. Because you know good and well that even if they tell you to your face, yeah, you're the quarterback beyond 2021, that could be a bunch of baloney. The Green Bay Packers are trying to cover for themselves. They want to take shelter for themselves and make sure that, yes, while they honor you, they also set the pieces in place to be able to move off of you and forward beyond your play when you're gone, when you're not on their team, or when you retire. So, now, in fairness to Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are just doing themselves a disservice by doing this. They're just shooting themselves in the foot by not providing Aaron Rodgers and supporting him with the ancillary pieces to put out a winning team and to support him. Why they wouldn't want to just go out and draft impact players or be a little bit more aggressive in free agency and pay J.J. Watt some extra money or sign this wide receiver or do these different things to help buffer their team. Why they don't want to do it, that baffles me. And I understand Aaron Rodgers' frustration with that. At least they signed Aaron Jones again. They re-signed him. But if you're Aaron Rodgers and you think that you need the Green Bay Packers to commit to you publicly, that commitment doesn't mean anything. Does not mean anything whatsoever. Dishpan, KK, Bly, FE. Sorry, don't know your username. NFC is Rodgers for the next 5 years. I hope so. I hope so, man. It should be. It absolutely should be if the Packers do their job. If they support him the way that they should, then they absolutely should be. What I'm concerned about is they're just going to continue to go through the motions and to put on a good face just to alleviate some of his concerns, but deep down they're not really going to do anything about it. That's the question. Jack Chapin, who are the other quarterbacks that can challenge him outside of Brady? So, okay, look at the Rams. If you're not saying to yourself, the LA Rams with Matthew Stafford and the defense, and now again Deshaun Jackson they just signed, isn't an improvement, you're lying to yourself. And think about who the one guy Aaron Rodgers did acknowledge is just as talented as him, who was the first actually to start the behind-the-back passes and the 63-yard passes from falling away was Matthew Stafford. He acknowledged Matthew Stafford is the guy who's just as talented as Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes before him. That came from Aaron Rodgers. And again, I want to see Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and the Packers should commit to him. That would be the prudent thing to do. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, you have to know fully well in the back of your mind that regardless of what they say, you can't trust them. Nothing they're going to say is absolutely going to ensure that you are the quarterback moving forward. They should. I hope he is, because it would be a disgrace to him. They'd be shooting themselves in the foot if they didn't. Aaron Rodgers has proven that he's not slowing down. In fact, if anything, he's improving at age 37. And I believe that. The NFL world believes that. But for whatever reason, the Green Bay Packers don't. And even if they do publicly assure him of that, you can throw that out the window. That's false praise. That's false assurance, false promises coming his way. It's just a reality. Okay, so final topic of the day, Malkin's moments. This is my favorite moment. A couple favorite moments from the past week in sports, and there have been a lot in sports for the past week. So I talked about how the Houston Rockets snapped a 20-game losing streak by knocking off the Toronto Raptors a couple days ago. So that in and of itself is cause for celebration. But more importantly, John Wall recorded a triple-double for the first time in 5 years. Yes, since 2016 was the last time that John Wall recorded a triple-double. It happened again a couple days ago. He, of course, missed the last 2 seasons with a ruptured Achilles, so it's nice to see John Wall starting to work his way back into shape for the Houston Rockets. Again, are the Houston Rockets going anywhere? No, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to make any noise. But as a basketball fan and as a once fan of John Wall, who used to be viewed as a top 5 point guard in the NBA, as the fastest point guard in the NBA, it's nice to see that he's starting to turn back into form. He's starting to become the player that we once expected him to be. That's really exciting. Then the NCAA women's basketball tournament, there's been a lot of news with that. Surprisingly, the 6-seed Michigan Wolverines beat the 3-seed Tennessee Volunteers. And they advanced to the Sweet 16. This is the first time ever in the history of the Michigan Wolverines women's basketball program that they have advanced to the Sweet 16. It's hard to believe that this is the first time ever that the Michigan Wolverines, the women's basketball team, a Division I basketball team, has made the Sweet 16 for the first time ever in their program's history. That is hard to believe. Then staying with the tournament, 13-seed Wright State upset number 4 Arkansas in the NCAA tournament. This is the first ever win. This is the first ever NCAA tournament win in the program's history for Wright State. This is a major accomplishment. Again, the year of 2020, and now it's trickling into 2021 as the year of the unpredictability, of the firsts in sports. This is just a A fantastic story. And not to mention, have to give out a shout out to my Wisconsin Badgers. Their women's ice hockey team won their 6th NCAA national hockey title a couple of days ago by topping Northeastern in overtime 2-1. Now they are tied with Minnesota for the most NCAA titles in women's hockey history. Just a tremendous run for this women's hockey team. And now this is the final highlight, and this is the interactive part of this. So I've been starting to dabble with this, which is trying to show highlights. I'm still getting better at it. We're getting better at it. But this is a highlight from women's soccer in the SEC. Sanchez Corretto scored an epic bicycle kick goal. I want to show you this video because it was an incredible video. I'm going to pull it up for you, so give me a moment. But anytime you see a bicycle kick goal in soccer, again, it's just one of those rare moments when you really just have to celebrate it. So there might be a brief commercial break here. Let's try and test this out in a second. Well, we're hearing it. It's going to be here in just 1 second. Again, appreciate you joining me on Morning Joe, Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so here is the highlight. Check this out. Bicycle kick, goal, back of the end zone. Wow, what a shot. What a shot. So love to see that. Love to see that. Shout out to Sanchez Corretto and their soccer team. That's a fantastic shot. Well, that's all the time that I got for you today. Thank you so much for joining me here on Morning Joe every Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook Live. Make sure to like, review, subscribe across all platforms, and keep the comments coming. I like the interactiveness. I like fielding your questions as they come. So thank you so much for joining me. And as always, have a lovely rest of your morning.